well. You're making a film about grief and wonder, and I thought it was a great topic, and I had no memory of that I had written these pieces with this crystal bowl after selling 2 grand pianos and ending up with no instruments and then getting one single bowl in a very reverberant wood floor empty room. And so I started making music with that, and this was a piece about grief.
Loneliness, teach me to pray, teach me to pray. Darkness, loneliness, darkness, loneliness, teach me to pray, teach me to pray. I'm home. I'm home. I'm home.
And so then, one day, another kind of sound emerged. I don't know if it fits the definition of wonder, but I certainly wondered at it when I heard it myself, because I was wondering where that came from at that time. And it goes like this. Just opening up, seeing what you're made of. You're starlight and love. It's all right enough. When I took a breath for the first song, Teach Me to Pray, it's a very dark, deep and raw space in the heart. And but it's a little bit like a pyramid too. But it's very rich in there too. It's not empty. I mean, it is not. It's full somehow. It's rich and full and substantial. So I find that kind of interesting. And then the second one is way less cavey. The first one is more like a cave, and then the second one feels more like a landscape. And then there's a lot more like a sense of a horizon and horizontal space, and then the stars, and almost like it has depth too, but it just all kind of sparkly. It's just way wider. I feel that they're both calling out. The first one feels very personal, like calling out for help with survival. And the second one feels very like calling out to help either myself or someone else to just remember themselves and remember their beauty, and hopefully they don't go away.
Grief. Good grief. It's not until you experience a loss that you come to comprehend things like death is permanent. And I know that sounds almost silly, but it's something that children don't really have a concept of. Until then. I was 10, and when my dog wasn't there anymore, I felt like, well, what happened? What happened to him? Where is he now? It's really, it's really difficult to comprehend the state of non-existence in anyone, much less ourselves. And it can lead you to a lot of sadness. I'm not good at putting my thoughts into words, I'm sorry. Oh. Not good at doing this on...
It's just about... What's something that you just need to get out and you can't find the words to do it?
Usually takes me a lot longer to say it. I feel like I remember thinking, if we all just die and nothing happens, or whatever, what have you, go to heaven or hell or whatever your religion tells you happens after you die, reincarnated, what's the point of any individual life? It kind of makes it seem almost trivial, and you could say it is. I remember reading something, might have been an article or a short story, or might have even been a meme from a long time ago, for all I remember and for all I care to remember. Speaking of that, though, it was some child who said, The meaning of life must be to learn how to love, and dogs have such short lives because they already know how. Well, here's me wondering about wonder. The second and most recent time I experienced the loss of a loved one was, I believe, 7 years ago now, when my grandfather passed away. I remember that more clearly. I was a bit older and not much wiser, but I remember the stories he used to tell. And I remember one story of my own with him. He used to tell me all kinds of stories about being an airplane mechanic during the Korean War, the time he removed a radio from a P-51 Mustang with a spoon. I also remember that because that was the last time I played Tears in Heaven on guitar. Was at his funeral. My dad asked me to. It's one of his favorite songs. It was one of my grandfather's favorite songs too. I nearly couldn't get through it. It's a lament. It's a powerful one. One thing about grief is that it's easy to get caught up in grieving for things you haven't even lost yet. Like, take Ziggy here. Hi, Ziggy. There's a good chance I'll outlive him. I knew that when I got him. And thinking about that terrifies me and crushes me. And I've thought about things like, what if he gets sick? What if the humane thing to do it is to have him euthanized? And I don't know if I can do that, even if it is, in theory, the better or the less painful for him. I don't want to avoid thinking about things like that, because avoiding things, pushing them down, just makes them come back twice as hard. But I also don't want to think about it. You don't look cats in the eyes. They take it as a sign of aggression. And that has a lot to do with, they don't need to blink. They evolved for the desert. However, if they look at you, looking in the eye, and blink, that is a sign of contentment. Because that means that they're comfortable enough around you to close their eyes, to let their guard down.
Conceptually, I'm just kind of approaching what I'm going to do with the cello as like being into the distortion, since the cello is just so out of tune right now, and then just like playing around with it and mingling with it, and yeah, it's a way of sort of grabbing the reins again, grabbing the cello by the reins. I think that, at least definitely for me, and from what I've been able to connect with other people's experiences of grief, and because grief isn't always exclusive to one situation. You know, we can experience grief in a lot of ways and a lot of different times in our life. But yeah, for when grief strikes me, I'm just like, I just wonder, like, what's next, right? Like, what happens after grief? I wonder what happens after grief. I wonder how the grief will change me. I wonder where the feelings that have lost their connection to whatever it is, the thing that I've lost, the person, the dream. I wonder how I'm going to be able to transmute that energy so that it just, you know, you have to stop feeding that connection at some point because it's kind of a dead end. And I wonder, yeah, just like the shift in perspective that needs to happen, where to redirect that energy. I always start by trying to bring that back into myself during the healing process and to use that energy that was so potent to begin to like heal and nourish myself. And I'm noticing that as I'm talking, I'm kind of massaging some of the sore muscles in my chest, like more around my shoulder and everything, but that's just such a heart space, like connection, at least for me. Being the I don't know, I guess magnetic powerhouse of the body. It's the thing that makes us tick. So just, I guess, making sure that I wonder about my heart and how like the stress of the experience is affecting it. And I wonder if it'll be okay, if I'll be okay. But, you know, like, I'm also definitely no stranger to grief. Like, I've lost a parent, I've lost lovers, and I've lost pets, and I lost my first car. I also like to, like, really try and manifest a life that has meaning. So when you do that, everything kind of has significance in some way and has the potential for grief, which is kind of exciting. And then when my mom died when I was 16, I really wondered, like, I wondered, like, what am I when I'm not a daughter? And Green Tara, I don't know, I've been looking to bring in some kind of like presence, some kind of like fetish, some kind of statue for my altar. And then I saw her and I just kind of had the realization that, like, you know, I don't have my biological mother anymore, but like, yeah, in that moment, I just felt more connected to the universal mother. And like that, you know, maybe for me in my own circumstance, that among many other things, that loss was a vehicle for that understanding of like that kind of connectedness to like that universal mother that like really gives compassion and like forgiveness, like before you even need it, which was something that like my own mother conveyed before she passed away. but it was also just like, it felt like really comforting in its expansiveness. And then also, strangely, just kind of like the sense of humor that comes around like loss and grief. And it can be macabre and it can be really off putting to other people sometimes. You know, like when people don't necessarily know you or your history. And like I remember in high school, someone was just kind of like spitting yo mama jokes, and like we were bantering, so you know it wasn't like the person was trying to be rude or anything. But then, you know, I shot a yo mama back at him, but it was more like, "My mama's dead." And then it was a mic drop, which I thought was really funny. It was like the perfect comeback to the Yo Mamas. But, you know, for them, yeah. I really love that you're asking that connection, asking for people to kind of make that connection, because it's so easy to get just like carried down just by the enormity of the feeling of grief and, you know, what it does to our breathing. Barely even surfacing some of my own memories of grief, I can already kind of feel like a bit of a constriction. And like one of the best things to do for that is laughter, you know, find levity. But also when that, like, depending on the magnitude, like when it hits, it's kind of like brings in a very specific scope and a very specific field to your experience. And like when we become so accustomed to that situation of, I mean, it's really just kind of stress. Grief is a kind of stress. Then you can like kind of deal more with the dualities of the, like, I guess, like worlds that you're in, that you're straddling, that you're moving between constantly. Yeah. And that's pretty wonderful. Can take a lesson from that for sure.